Alright, hello, welcome back to the podcast once again, everybody. If anybody wants to support me, PayPal and Patreon links are both down below. Only do so if you actually can. So, exorbitant European natural gas prices, way off the record charts, and also way out of range of anything the US market is used to seeing. US natural gas prices, for similar reasons, have also been jumping up as of late. However, they've only jumped up to between $6 and $6.50 per thousand cubic feet, whereas once you convert from the European measurements, European natural gas prices have now jumped up close to $40 per thousand cubic feet. And yes, you heard correctly, nearly $40 per thousand cubic feet. Whereas, like I said, US prices have jumped up to merely between $6 and $6.50, and the highest US prices ever was only in the upper teens, somewhere north of like $15 or $16 per thousand cubic feet. So obviously this has been a shocking development, although it really shouldn't have been. One of the big factors that came into this over the course of the last number of months, during which the warmer months for the Northern Hemisphere is usually when a lot less natural gas gets used. So that's the refill season, quote-unquote, for natural gas inventories for most countries. However, Europe saw an awful lot less wind than they would have preferred to see, which is a big deal because they've been switching so much of their power generation over to wind. However, in the absence of desirable wind amounts, and in the presence of significant deficits of it, that additional electricity has to be generated from something. And in some cases, like the UK, it was switching back on a number of coal-fired power plants. However, most of Europe is of the strong anti-coal sentiment. So their quick-fire option is to turn on natural gas-fired power plants. And so their natural gas consumption levels over the warmer months of this year were significantly higher than they otherwise would have been, leading to quite a number of European nations' inventories not building up to the pre-winter levels that they normally would be at about this time of year, which, depending on the severity of the winter, which obviously impacts the level of heating demand, that can lead into, we'll just call it, not good. And so, with decently lower inventories than they otherwise would have going into this winter, along with a falling supply as UK natural gas production continues to decline, the Netherlands, who used to be a significant natural gas producer and still has plenty of natural gas that they could continue producing at decent rates, has just been gradually shutting down all of their production over the course of the last decade or so, as basically a political environmental grandstanding move, sort of. So Europe's in-house natural gas suppliers have been dwindling, with Norway even having a hit peak production. Granted, they're not declining just yet, so to speak. They're sort of holding out at 12 or 13 billion cubic feet per day. And one of their formerly reliable nearby suppliers, Algeria, having hit their peak production and being on their way down as well, and also having a shrinking export ratio to Europe as Algeria's own domestic consumption levels continue to increase. So while still waiting for Russia to complete that new natural gas pipeline, Europe has been left to compete with China, South Korea, and Japan for additional LNG imports from the US. And so that combination of factors has produced the current scenario. And like I always do in some way, I'm going to run down the numbers for you, at least as of present, starting with the biggest, Germany, Deutschland. Very disappointing. You guys could have had much higher inventory levels presently if you weren't going on that whole anti-nuclear shut down all of your reactors trend. As if all of Germany's prior nuclear power plants were all still up and operational, then that would be providing a much bigger baseload of power, and the power supply deficit left by the reduced amounts of wind would not be as great, so the summer natural gas demand levels would not have been as high. but regrettably, that is not the case. So Germany is significantly down compared to where their inventories normally would be. Presently, Germany's inventories stand at about 550 billion cubic feet in storage, whereas normally, heading into the colder months right about this time, Germany would have upwards of around 700 billion cubic feet. So their gas inventories are down by over 20%. Their neighbor France, who isn't shutting down all of their nuclear reactors, had quite a different outcome and is not significantly below where they would be. In fact, they're actually not even below where they would be. France is at about 410 billion cubic feet in storage of natural gas currently, whereas normally they would be right around 400 or so at this time. The UK actually has a different problem altogether. The government of the UK constantly does not have additional natural gas storage facilities created or even made to replace the ones that they're shutting down. Instead, they just keep shutting down natural gas storage facilities, and they are now actually down to the point of not even having over 40 billion cubic feet of storage capacity in total anymore. Instead, they're down into the 30s and are presently holding at right about 33. The Czech Republic currently is a little bit below 106, which is below where they normally would be by about 10% or so. Both the Czech Republic and Poland have roughly about the same amount of total storage capacity, around 122 or 123, and both of them heading into the colder months, once the withdrawal season starts, both of them usually start out pretty full, or at least close to it. Usually in the upper teens, closer to 120, around like 117, 18, or 19. But the Czech Republic is starting off the withdrawal season a bit under 106. Poland, thankfully, is starting off around normal. They're actually still up at 118, a decent portion of that owing to the fact that they haven't switched a huge chunk of their power generation over to wind turbines. Hungary is down by between 10 and 15% or so. They're down around 190 billion cubic feet in storage, whereas normally they seem to tend to start things off closer to around 220 or so. The Netherlands, as I previously mentioned, once a decent natural gas producer, now they are way down and are in the process of shutting their production down completely. Their inventories are down by the largest proportion out of anybody, whereas normally they would start off the withdrawal season, the colder months, closer up to about 400 billion cubic feet in storage. They are all the way down under 300 and are only at 286 at the present time. Denmark, dealing with much smaller numbers, but granted also having a much smaller population, normally by the start of the colder months, they are at around 30 billion cubic feet in storage or so. However, this year their inventories are starting off down by about 15%, as they are presently at 25.6. Romania is down by between 15 and 20%, presently at 83 billion cubic feet in storage, whereas normally, right about this time, they start off the withdrawal season right around 100 or so. Slovakia is down by a little bit. Normally they're a bit up over 100. However, as of the moment, instead, they're a bit under 100 at 96.5. Belgium usually starts off the colder months at about 29, sometimes 30. This time, they're a bit under that, presently at 27.3. Croatia, currently at 15.4 billion cubic feet in storage, which for them is down by more than 10%, as normally they would start off over 16, closer up towards 17. And Bulgaria is right at around the same amount, just a tiny bit lower at 15.3 billion cubic feet, whereas normally they're closer up to right around 20 or so. And Austria, currently at 183 billion cubic feet in storage, which is a decent bit down from where they otherwise normally would be. Normally they're up into the 200s by several dozen. So that is how the numbers have turned out, and are standing right as the higher natural gas demand half of the year is about to start. So ultimately, whether or not this actually gets bad will depend on the severity of the winter. But that's it for now. So thank everybody for sticking around and listening. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. You can support me through PayPal, Patreon if you want to, and only if you actually can. May God bless and protect you all, and I will see you all around next time.